All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, the story broke this morning that LSU and head football coach Ed Orgeron have agreed to part ways at the conclusion of the 2021 college football season. Now, in 6 seasons at LSU, Orgeron's record is 49-17, which includes a national championship at the conclusion of the 2019 college football season. But since that magical 15-0 campaign, the Bayou Bengals are only 9-8. Now, you look at some of the things that Orgeron is dealing with right now, an investigation for misconduct within the LSU football program. Then we saw LSU be hit by a litany of injuries this year. And then also that looming presence in Tuscaloosa. And I'm talking about the dominance that we have seen now for about 15 years from the Alabama Crimson Tide program and former LSU head football coach Nick Saban. Now, the expectations in Baton Rouge are extremely high. And you can look no further than the fact that each of the last two head football coaches at LSU, both Ed Orgeron and Les Miles, led this program to national championships, and each one of them was shown the door. It's a situation where, you know what, again, it's all about what Alabama has been doing and the domination that we've seen come out of that Crimson Pride program. I think that's part of it. Now, LSU does have the money and they do have the facilities, but they're not going to be a program that's going to compete for a national championship every year just due to the fact that life in the SEC West is so difficult. And I know that the people who follow this program don't want to hear that, but that is the reality. When you're talking about you have to deal with Auburn, you have to deal with Texas A&M, which is really resurging under Jimbo Fisher. You have the likes of Ole Miss, who's trying to come up with Lane Kiffin, Arkansas, so and several other programs. And then we have also have a situation where both Texas and Oklahoma are set to join the SEC very soon. So it's going to be interesting to see how that divisional breakdown looks then. But nonetheless, it is so difficult, to try to stay ahead of the curve. And I know that LSU gets their fair share of quality recruits. But again, life is just so difficult in the SEC West. The SEC West alone might be more difficult than most conferences in the country just by itself as a division. That just gives you an idea of how tough the things are there. I mean, you look at Coach O. They went 5-5 last year, and I know that some people wanted to throw that season away from for some people due to COVID. Nonetheless, that wasn't going to get it done at Baton Rouge. He got started on the wrong foot this year when Louisiana State went west to begin the season at the Rose Bowl versus UCLA, and they lost to a then unranked UCLA program, and then a blowout loss on the road a couple of weeks ago to Kentucky, even though Kentucky is a resurgent team right now. And then also they lost a home game, a night home game a couple of weeks ago to Auburn. And this was a game in which LSU held the 19-10 advantage heading to the fourth quarter, and they lost that game 24-19. So honestly, the writing was on the wall there. Ed Orgeron was on the extreme hot seat, and now they've agreed to part ways and go their separate ways for the near future. Now, potential replacements that you're going to hear to take over at LSU for Ed Orgeron, you're going to hear the name Jimbo Fisher, and I know that he is a current head football coach at Texas A&M, and it's going to take a king's ransom to buy Jimbo out from that contract if he's interested in coming to LSU. And I say that because once upon a time, Jimbo Fisher was an assistant coach at LSU. He was there under Nick Saban. He was part of that national championship team at the end of the 2003 college football season. And like I said, it's going to take a king's ransom for LSU to get him away from Texas A&M if he's interested. And in the eyes of LSU, that would just add to this rivalry, kind of in a sense when Nick Saban left LSU, went to coach the Miami Dolphins. After a few years, it didn't work out. Next thing you know, he's at Alabama, and the rest is history. So that would only heighten it. We'll have to wait and see. Joe Brady is another name that you're going to hear a lot of. Joe Brady is the current offensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers in the National Football League, but also Joe Brady was the offensive coordinator and passing game coordinator for LSU when they had that record-setting offense in 2019. So I guarantee you there's going to be some folks around this program in Baton Rouge that want Joe Brady to come back and lead this team in spite of the fact that he's never been that head coach guy right there. You look at Bill O'Brien, another name that you could potentially hear. And the reason why I say it is, Bill O'Brien had some success at the collegiate level as a head football coach at Penn State. He did have some success in the NFL with the Houston Texans before, he got too full of himself. But we've seen over the years where head coaches go to Alabama under Nick Saban. They quote unquote recharge their batteries and get reacclimated, and they get a new lease on life in regards to coaching in the National Football League. A part of me in college football, rather. Could Bill O'Brien be another one of those guys? We'll have to wait and see. Luke Fickle, the current head coach at Cincinnati, his name is always going to be linked to bigger jobs in Power Five conferences. I know that Cincinnati is on the verge of heading to the Big 12. They are currently the second ranked team in the nation right now, following the loss to Iowa, following Iowa's loss yesterday. He's definitely going to get a lot of love. And his name is going to be out there for several jobs as well as a USC job. But it's going to be interesting to see how happy that Luke Fickle is. I know that the Big 12 money is coming soon for Cincinnati, but the Big 12 money for Cincinnati is not going to be the LSU type money and the SEC type money that Luke Fickle could potentially receive. So we'll have to wait and see. And another name, excuse me, that you could hear is also Dave Aranda. Dave Aranda is currently the head football coach at Baylor. And Baylor is putting together a very quality season in the Big 12 conference. And during that national championship run for LSU a couple of years ago, Dave Aranda was their defensive coordinator. So this is another guy who knows how to get it done in Baton Rouge. But the bottom line is this: you have to ask yourself, will LSU ever be the program that people around this program want them to be? And I say that because LSU is a power in the SEC, and they have had immense success on the gridiron. You actually have to go back to 1999. It was the last year under Jerry DiNardo, and just the last year prior to Nick Saban coming there, that the Bayou Bengals did finish the season with a losing record. And when you think about it, when Nick Saban left, Les Miles had put together some very good years. He had some lean years, and I say lean years when LSU was a 3 or 4 loss team. And, a lot of programs around the country would take that, not LSU. And it's the same thing for Ed Orgeron. He put together some quality years, but the 5-5 mark last year left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. Of course, the off the field issues for this program, and then the 4-3 start this year. But the bottom line is, and again, people around this program don't want to hear this, but it's the truth. Outside of Alabama, Ohio State, and Oklahoma, there aren't many teams that can say, you know what, we're going to be in contention for a national championship every year. And it's regardless of the facilities, it's regardless of, the recruits that you get. It's not easy. And I know that the people around this program don't want to hear that. And I totally understand that. But, when you think about it, and we saw this with Les Miles as well, it would be a year by year progression. And when his seniors and juniors got to that level, LSU was able to be in the top five. And then they took a step back because, those kids graduated, a couple of guys left early, and then it was a little slow step back. But the problem is everybody is seeing what Alabama is doing, being in the top five every single year. And again, I cannot harp on this enough. That doesn't happen for everybody. So the pressure and the expectations are going to be huge for whomever walks through that door. Thus, why I think Jimbo Fisher has to be very high on the list of people to replace Ed Orgeron at LSU, just due to the fact that he knows what it takes to win. Where the expectations are high. He took over for Bobby Bowden at Florida State. He's gotten things turned around at Texas A&M. And hopefully, if for the people at LSU, if they're able to persuade him to leave College Station and come to Baton Rouge, he'll do the same there. But nonetheless, we're going to see. I will say this: being that LSU was ready to move on from Ed Orgeron, it's smart that they did it now, because now they can get ahead of the curve and stay ahead of the curve and begin their national search to find the next head football coach for their program. Not only that, they still have an opportunity to save, their recruiting class coming in for next college football season. And of course, a new hire could potentially add to the quality of that class. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But nonetheless, it's very interesting that this happened, to say the least. And again, LSU is another place. And I talked about this with Auburn last year when they parted with Gus Malzahn. It's a situation where the expectations are simply high there. Good luck to the next guy who, takes over this program as he tries to get the ship righted. But it's one of those things where everybody in the SEC is looking up at Alabama, and once again, another head coach in the SEC bit the dust because he couldn't get it done consistently versus the Crimson Tide. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take the time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There is also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.